live.
Okay.
Okay, welcome.
All right, welcome to this board meeting. We appreciate you being here. Tanis, our chair, we hope will be along before the meeting is over. And before we start, we will have Tyson lead us with the pledge. If you would stand, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay,
So if we could share the screen, Mrs. DeGraw, and then I'll be able to pull that up. Okay. Yep, so there.
I'd like to call for a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve the minutes from our previous meetings on July 23rd, as well as special board meeting on June 10th.
Mrs. Perkins, we have not approved the agenda.
2.4.
Okay. All right, Tyson, you're it tonight. Tyson, or we need somebody to approve the agenda.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the agenda.
Second, is there a second?
I second that.
Okay, Andrea seconded.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All in favor, Andrea?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
now you can go to
Now-
2.5. You don't have to do that till.
okay. We need someone to approve the minutes from the last meeting and the special board meeting.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve the minutes from our July 23rd board meeting, as well as our special board meeting on June 10th.
Is there a second?
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Now it's time for our superintendent's report.
All right.
Mr. Williams.
Okay. As read. I just have a message that comes through that our board chair will be here very shortly.
Oh, that's great.
So I bet you're feeling a lot better about that. The board chair can be here. So thank you so much, Mrs. Perkins, for filling in as chair until Mrs. Cherry is able to get here, and start with our superintendent report. And those that can see the screen, you can follow along with that. It was awesome to have kids back in school. Let me tell you what, it was amazing. I know that there's so much going on in our community, so many different decisions that are happening, so much unrest, but it went very well. Every single year, regardless of how much time you have to plan, there's always a few hiccups here or there. But at the end of the day, my son went home, and from one of our devices, he sent me a message and he said, "Dad, today was a good day to be back in school." And I want our community to know that's what we want. We want our kids to be here. And throughout this whole meeting, throughout my report, we are going to do our best to make that happen. Our extracurricular activities, our fall sports are starting. We're doing the very best we can. We know that this is going to be the whole theme of the meeting. We're grateful for the time that we have for these kids to do it, and we're going to do everything we can to extend it. And that's what we can do. Our technology departments, they're getting the Chromebooks out to our secondary students, working through that. Our maintenance and grounds, I was able to give a tour of our facilities to the class of 1959 of West Jefferson. So we had about 20 of them that were able to make it. So class of 1959, that was the third year West Jefferson was in place. I took them around the whole buildings, and back then the high school hall was the only one. They didn't have those little tiny halls where we had the freshman hall and the senior halls for those of you that are in the audience. And they were able to come and reminisce, but I heard so many different times, these buildings are clean. these buildings are well kept. And that's hats off to our maintenance, our grounds, our custodial. Last board meeting, and in the special meetings, it was asked to look into water fountains that could have the water things fill up, just because we're trying to be cautious of everything. And also it came up in about hot water. I invited Mr. Soderquist, not to put you in the spot. I didn't know it was going to be super duper crowded, but if you have a chance to follow up on that and just tell the board what you were able to look into, what we're working through, and the things that we can keep working at.
Okay, in the PE building, there is no bottle filler that will retrofit what you have right there. To make them work, to put another model in, you'd have to chisel out the walls, redo the drains. It'd be just a ton of work.
Sorry, I got all excited this.
Over here in the junior high, I called the company this morning. They said they had someone that would retrofit what's there. But when I got the measurements and went over there and looked, I really doubt it'll fit without, once again, tearing the walls out. And refilling it over there. We set up the fit. What the neighbor might work because it's a new. So, as far as the hot water goes, there's hot water there. You just have to use enough water to get it there. And that's the same with all of our buildings, and especially the high school, because it's added and added and added and added onto. And the only way we could make it any quicker than that would be to put a hot water tank at each individual thing, which would be a maintenance nightmare for me, because they don't get used that much, and they'll just get hard water in and have to fill them in.
So with those water fountains, as you know, welcome our board chair to the meeting. Mrs. Cherry has made it. We know that the PE building or the main gym area, it would have to be chiseling, going out. Can you repeat again what it was in the Territon buildings?
It might be the same for over here. I took the model numbers and called the company, and they said they had one that would retrofit. But as I downloaded the plans and the drawings of where everything needed to be, and we're not even close. So there again, you have to chisel out the walls and try to retrofit it.
So a backup plan to that would be all the classrooms do have sinks. When we first got back and the teachers would get there, anytime you have a building that sits for 5 or 6 months, sometimes when the water comes out, it doesn't look very pretty, but as it runs through all of our wells, can you go about, Mr. Soto, can you talk about the testing process that we do with all of our water?
We spend thousands of dollars a year testing the water to make sure it's good. So every month I take a test in and we get a report back. So there's nothing wrong with the water. A filter is not going to change anything on it. So I know we just spent a ton of money.
So I guess as a board, we could look at the cost of and the expense of buying devices, having to chisel out the drainage, and that would be, as I've talked with Mr. Soderquist, just upon your recommendations or thoughts, we could get the money or at least get a estimate of how much it would be and just decide if that's still what we want to try to do. So are there any questions for Mr. Soderquist while he's here on?
Mr. Soderquist, it sounds to me like you don't think it needs to be done.
The water fillers? Oh, I like them.
Do you?
I do like them, yeah. They're pretty handy. We put the one in the high school, but because of the age of our buildings and stuff, the plumbing's just not where it needs to be. Yeah, I love the water filler over there. Yeah. But it's just,
I think it just comes down to a priority. Like if we want to spend ballpark, when Mr. Soderquist was telling me the cost just to buy the actual unit around $1,400. That's just the unit to just put onto the wall. And so it might be closer to 3,000 or 4,000, maybe 2,500. I don't know. By the time you look at labor,
guessing, I'd say it probably costs double the price of the water filler to chisel the walls out.
so
And when
3,000.
you chisel the walls out, there's no guarantee that when you're chiseling, you don't knock the brick clear out into a classroom, a locker room.
Major repair.
So, yeah. So anytime you have to do that much work, there's no guarantees. And when you get in there, there's not any guarantees that you're gonna be able to do what you set out to do too.
Any other questions for Mr. Soderquist? So, okay, thank you for following up on that and appreciate that update. Food service, you can see on the report, we do have a new online sign up for our free and reduced lunch. This is something that whether families choose to use the free or reduced lunch option that's available, the district does benefit from having families fill out the free and reduced lunch account. And that allows us for different options and grant opportunities. So our Title I money and some of the COVID money that I can talk about a little bit later, it all starts with this number. And right now in our district, all of our schools in the district qualify as school-wide, which means that we have at least 40% that qualify for free or reduced lunch. And so what that does is 40%. It has to be above 40% to be able to qualify for school-wide. We are right around 50, and we fluctuate between 49 and 51%. It could be higher if more people fill that out. We might miss some people that choose they might think to themselves, I don't want to eat school lunch, but they still could help the district out. And what we do with that money is we're able to hire paras and aides and also get some intervention programs. And then a lot of the grants that we write and go for are based on that number. And so in our food service, last year here on the Territon campus, K through 12 qualified for free breakfast. And so we were able to provide a free breakfast meal to every student that wanted it, regardless of whether they qualified. This last year with our numbers at the high school did not qualify for that. And so we still are offering the time because there are some high school students that can get that receive free or reduced breakfast, or the cost of the breakfast would be $1.60 for those that aren't on that. But K through 8 still qualifies. So that's just one of the things that as we're with food services and looking at the different grant opportunities. And so I just wanted to mention on this report that it is available for online sign up. It's on the website. If you just go to our wjsd.org, you'll take it right to it. And then been working with the food services. We're looking at the plans for COVID, trying to make sure that we're meeting all the different requirements for that. Transportation department, we will have a bus plan that we will talk about later in the meeting that needs to be approved every single year. And just the different cleaning supplies and things. And I've invited Mr. Pincock. This might be anything that you want to mention with the transportation or department prior to the plan. No? Okay. Not a man of many words and getting put on the spot. It's a big crowd. So we'll wait till that portion of the agenda. We'll invite Mr. Pincock to come and share what the plan is on that. The secondary schools, I'm going to start calling secondary schools our junior high and high school, just because we're sharing teachers. There'll be some things that I can highlight differently. Registration had some pros and cons this year, but some of the things that we did see is that the first day of school, there was not a huge long line outside of the counselor's office. Kids were able to get in. Now it's common that kids will come in and want to change classes, but again, our numbers, we don't have enough numbers in the district to justify a fully functioned autonomous junior high and a fully functional autonomous high school. And so we have to share students back and forth on the bell schedules. And so the first day of administration, we've been out helping the kids get to the different spots. We're 2 days in and things are going well with that.
Question.
Yes.
I should know this, but do you have some junior high going over to high school to take classes?
We do.
Okay.
We do.
And this is the first year that's happened?
No, it's not happened. This is really, it's happened even when I was in junior high, but
Very, very little.
but it was with elective teachers only. But now we have junior high students that are able to take Spanish at the high school. We have junior high students that are able to take, if they qualify for advanced courses, they can take math classes with Mrs. Bell. So it offers advanced opportunities for them to do that. And so last year we actually had junior high students going over to the math class. And so it's nothing that we haven't been doing. Now it's just, this is part of the plan. This is what we're doing. One of the issues with last year's, our bell schedules were not the same. Junior high had a different bell schedule than the high school. And that made it really difficult to share teachers because one time we would have classes that would be let out and then at a different time, and you can see how that would be difficult. During our back to school meeting, I just wanted to highlight and talk about some of the things I talked about during back to school. And I did have a prezi. I'm not going to take the time to show because we have a lot of other things on the agenda. But as superintendent, I outlined the different things that are important to me as a staff, and we put into play the professional dress code for our teachers. Our school board voted last month to put a professional dress code in. Our teachers are embracing that. Our teachers, it's as I've walked around, what a difference a year makes. And not that our teachers were trying to push the boundaries, they just didn't have a boundary last year. And they're very, very appreciative of that. We reviewed code of ethics with all of our teachers. We talked about the method of being able to report things that are when people are out of bounds. That's going to be on our website. And so we're putting into play a lot of the different things that we've been talking about, and it was well received from our teachers. A lot of excitement to be back. Of course, there's some apprehension with how do we move forward with the health crisis that we're in right now, and we'll discuss that on the rest. So, Madam Chair, that's what I have for my report. Any questions from the board?
All right, thank you, Mr. Williams. Mrs. DeGraw, do I have all of these? No more?
I believe so. Does anybody else have a green paper?
Okay. Before we begin, I just want to remind everyone, your input should not exceed 3 minutes. Discussion of personnel matters or personal attacks are not appropriate. If you have anything that you want to leave with us, that's great. And we would invite you to come up here and stand if you would. Mrs. Moss.
Back to you first.
You're a good leader, Liz.
What's that?
You're a
Mrs.
leader.
DeGraw.
I'm thinking that someone else is going to say what I had to say. First off, I wanted to say thank you for relooking at the schedule and looking for 4 days a week instead of 3 days a week, because I think our kids need to be in school as much as possible. And where athletes come and are required to practice every day, they might as well be here in school instead of us coming over and bringing them. The second thing I wanted to, I don't know who exactly to go to because I've tried a couple of people. I cannot get a master schedule for high school classes. I want to see what's available. And they say, well, what class do you want to change? And I say, well, this one. Well, there's really nothing here, but I cannot get a master schedule. They won't give it to me. They say parents aren't allowed to have one this year, which seems a little fishy to me. But I think we ought to be able to have one and make decisions for our kids instead of just saying, well, these are the classes they want to take. Try to fit them in there. And then the last thing is, I'm a little concerned about the time for math in the middle school. 45 minutes is just, in my opinion, not enough time for math time. I don't know how to increase that, what they have. I mean, I talked to Mr. Hilton earlier, and they might have a study hall after Spud Harvest, which will help, but to get instruction and a lesson in 45 minutes is, anyway, not enough time. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Question, Liz.
Yeah.
There isn't a master schedule on the internet.
No, and you can't get one. I've talked to the counselor and the principal, and they said parents aren't allowed to have one this year. So, yeah.
Do you know why that is?
I can look into it.
Mrs. Raymond. Oh, there she is.
Okay, so there's a couple things that have kind of thrown us off this year. One of the biggest things is a form of communication for parents. I find myself running to Facebook for certain things, And I didn't know that my Edleo Living Tree, whatever that is, was not working. So I wasn't getting emails from it. I had to go in and redo a bunch of stuff, and then it finally started sending me emails. I don't know if we're still using Notify Me, and I think we need a more streamlined communication to parents so that we're not confused looking for stuff everywhere, having to go several different places to get the information that we need. Because trying to find back to school stuff, trying to get schedule stuff figured out. I know we can find some of it on the website, but that's frustrating to me because I can't even type in the web address and get the school. I have to Google it and click on the link to get into the website. So it's just getting frustrating at this point that I have to find information from several different sources when I could hopefully get it from one place. And I would prefer if it all came via text or email or something that everyone has, rather than a little bit on Facebook and a little bit on Edleo, and because you don't know what all the parents have. And I've heard of some parents, like one parent didn't even know that there was school for their kids this morning. They thought we were on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule. So we need to be, I don't know what we can do about it, but we need to streamline our communication better.
Thank you. Mrs. O'Sullivan?
I just have a question about the COVID-19 schedule. When it was 3 days a week, every other day, kind of how it came out, but then ended up not being every other day. It's 2 days here, 1 here, you know. I love the at least 4 days. The more days you can get kids in school, the better. But I just want to understand why we have Wednesdays off. If it was every other day because COVID, Eastern Idaho Public Health says we have to clean every other day, I would understand that. I just don't understand what's happening on Wednesdays as to why we have them off. That's the first question. And then the second one was breakfast. My kid comes home with a letter from his teacher saying, if you're not in your seat by 8:10, you're tardy. But then he said they kind of mess around for a few minutes and they go to breakfast. So he's going to waste time when I already fed my kid breakfast at home. If I bring him to school at 8:30, he's tardy, although he's just wasted 20 minutes of his day in the morning when I've already taken care of him at home. So I'm wondering if I could bring my child to school at 8:30 and he's not considered tardy. Those are my concerns.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Telford?
Well, I have 6 minutes. Well, I'm not a young mother anymore, as you would tell, but I'm on this Wednesday deal too instead of Friday. I think, in my opinion, and experiencing lots of years, that it's better if the kids go Monday through Thursday because they're already in the momentum to go. And Fridays, we have a lot of activity runs. And so the kids are missing school anyway on Fridays to go to their activity runs. I mean, not runs, activities, sports activities. And so I think you'd have more class time with the students if you had Wednesday in and did online on Friday. And then online, it'd give them 3 days to complete their onlines in case their dads want to work them. And I think it would work better with the teachers too. We're already used to having no preschool on Friday. And then that schedule you have a lot of Fridays that are the teachers' work days. And so you wouldn't have to say, okay, we're going to have Wednesday and then Friday off. You just do the Monday through Thursday and you just already have that Friday off with the teachers thing. The kids, when I looked it up, there's 2 Wednesdays, 5 Thursdays, and 4 Fridays of sports activities. They go out from JV to high school. And some of those Thursday ones, they're going to get home. Some work like the Chalice, Teton. So those kids get home sometime 10, 11, 12, depending. And so it's tough when then kids have to get back up and go to school again on Friday early or go to practice early on Friday. So I think it'd be better for the kids if they're involved in those activities to be able to have Friday off. And then the Friday run, the kids are going to miss a half a day of school to go do their sports thing. And then if they have a doctor's appointment or something on Wednesday, then they don't have time to complete the online course. And this way it'd give them 3 days to complete the online course. And then my biggest concern, and I see my supervisors here, so I don't know how much trouble I'm gonna get into, but we have one dedicated sub driver. We have one pretty good at driving. We have one if it's convenient to drive, but we're down to 3 substitute drivers. Us bus drivers, I mean, he just said, you know, try not to take any time off because we don't have anybody to fill in. And he's advertised and advertised, but nobody wants to drive those hot old buses. I mean, if you want to know how hot they are, go get in your tractor and turn off the air conditioner and drive down the field with nothing, no windows open, and see how hot they get. But anyway, I just don't know what we're gonna do for bus drivers. I don't know how you're gonna, and all these, if they're on Fridays, that would save trying to find substitute bus drivers on Fridays if we had it off. Because that's when most of your activities, and that's also when we have baseball and that, they're like Friday and overnight on Saturdays.
Thank you. Mrs. Wilcox?
Well, I had a long written out spiel, but I think it's been fixed now. I just want to make sure that parents can go to games when we hit orange level. Because otherwise I was going to fight for that. And I think there's a lot of people here who are going to fight for that, to go see our kids. So if that's been taken care of, then I think I kind of want to turn it to the mental health of what we're doing to our kids. Because looking around the room, like, I think all of us have lived all summer. We have gone places, like I know my family, we've gone to Montana, we've gone to Utah, we've lived. And all of a sudden we're coming to school, and I know you have to follow guidelines and regulations. But my 7-year-old, before school started, she was like, if I cough or sneeze, are they gonna test me for corona? And I was like, oh, no. So I think we need to watch the approach that we're giving to our kids, because it was devastating for us to hear that parents couldn't go to games. Can you imagine how it felt for kids to hear that? And it's just like, bam, you have to wear a mask. Bam, parents can't go. You have to have your temperature taken. I don't know what the answer is, but if we could be mindful about what this is doing for our kids who have come from a summer of being normal to, bam, all these rules. Anyway. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mrs. Smith?
Did I ramble?
Okay, well, mine may have already been taken care of as well, but I also have a question about this breakfast program and the bell schedule and why we are starting at 8:05, 8:10, going straight to breakfast. Why is that not being offered before? Why is it being offered at all? But why is it being offered during the class time? Because I also feed my kids at home. That is my responsibility. That is your responsibility. So I feel like the kids need to be in home a little bit longer, get them to school. It used to start at what, 8:25, 8:30, because the breakfast program was before school. So that is a big concern to me right now. And if that's all they have to be to school for in the morning, then I will bring my kids at 8:30 so that they can start their regular class time. So that is one of my things. I also just have a question about the grading system this year. My daughter brought home a paper saying she's going to be graded 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's no longer A, B, C, D, F or something. I'm not sure. I don't understand it. So if you could clarify that. And then I do just have one question about a class from last year in the 3rd trimester. I have a son who did not pass one of his classes, but there was an EdLeo message, I believe, from Mr. Williams saying the teacher or administration will contact you so that you can complete this class. We have never been contacted, but now all of a sudden his coach is telling him after week 3, you will not be able to play unless that class is taken care of. Well, now that class is no longer required to graduate. So how is he supposed to fix that? Plus there was 45 assignments that he was supposed to do for that class. After 5, he checked out. And my kid is top of the class. So what am I supposed to do for that? Who do I turn to help him with that? And then, you know, scheduling. But if, again, like Janice said, if that has been taken care of, I'm going to be there for my kids. I should be there before the media can be there, but I'm going to be there for my kids. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Elliott.
I don't know if I can follow that.
Well, I'm gonna take a totally different slant on this thing. I'm coming from a high school college background here. And last month's meeting, I asked for a couple of textbooks, the history and the world history textbook, which you gave to me, and I've been reviewing them. And the reason I've been reviewing them is because I had some complaints from parents. And for example, one of the most noteworthy was that that the Muslims had like 6 pages of information about the Muslims and just 1 page or less about Christianity and all. And these are things that I think that we need to be aware of. In addition, and what I did also while I had the textbooks, and unless y'all need the textbooks, I'd like to keep them longer because I'm still going through them. So if you get short, I've got it set of both of them. I researched several in the U.S. history book, and when I did, I tried to pick some topics that were, you hear about in the media all the time. And one thing I noted, I can certainly understand why kids think that the Civil War was begun over slavery, which it's not. There's a lot of information about that and not so much information about the true cause of the Civil War. Again, and we're hearing about the Klan on the media. And so I reviewed the book on this topic. And I could not find anything in the textbooks that indicated that the Democrats were responsible for the Klan and continued even on up through Senator Byrd, who was a Klan member. And there was just nothing. It was just totally whitewashed. Martin Luther King, I checked out him since his name appears in the media a lot lately. And I found no mention about him being a member of the Communist Party. And these kids, our kids need to learn about the good parts of this country and about the bad parts and about the ugly parts, so that they have a true sense of the history. But we have a lot of good parts about this, about this country here. And sometimes I don't think that that's being given to the kids. I already talked to Mr. Harrelson. He did some explanation about the reading scores. And I guess that's about it. But I just do have one question based on what some of the others have said, is that, why are we being dictated to by the Public Health Board that we didn't elect? And I don't understand why we're doing that. So that's my comments.
Thank you. Okay. Well, did anyone have any questions on the consent agenda? Financial or personnel? If not, the floor would be open for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Is Andrea still on the phone? Can she hear us? Okay.
Yes,
Those
I
in
can hear
favor?
you.
Okay.
Aye.
Was that an in favor vote then?
Yeah, she's fine.
Okay, thank you. Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Thank you. Bus 14 then.
Okay. So I'm gonna take a second just to inform patrons. We've had a lot of things that were shared during the public comments. Public board meeting is not set for a time where we go back and forth between that. I saw our chair. We were writing down everything, so we're not trying to skip away from the things that were brought up during public comment. So some of the things that were brought up will be addressed today. Some of the things that we want to hear, I'm going to take feedback and we're going to learn and grow, try to do a better job of informing going forward. And so appreciate those comments. If we don't have a chance to address those now, it's not because we're trying to skirt around them. It's just that's not what a public board meeting is about. So we can move on to 4.1 unless you had anything else to add.
Well, I should have clarified that people will hear back from you and hopefully get things resolved if they're not covered in the meeting today. So
Bus 14 needed some repairs, and we're just following procedures that, since the cost of that was over the amount that needs board approval, we're looking to ratify Bus 14. And so that's really all it is, just a ratification. Mr. Pincock, is Bus 14 fixed? So it's fixed and ready to go. Just need to formalize that.
the floor would be open for that motion then.
Madam Chair, I move that we ratify the rebuild of engine of Bus 14.
Is there a second?
A second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Our transportation program, we review and approve that every year. So I guess it's time.
I'll pull it up. And is it okay, Madam Chair, if I invite
That
Mr.
would be great.
Pincock? We won't even put the camera on you, but if we want to highlight anything, Mr. Pincock, on the transportation program that I brought up.
Do you want me to come up there or am I okay back here or long day?
Board, what is he all right
Wherever
there?
you're most
Well, come up
comfortable.
here. Please come up here. So I can hear you. If you don't mind.
Let's get a spotlight on him, please.
Okay, so as far as this transportation plan, every year we have to have this approved by the board. And for the most part, it's as simple as you just go through and kind of change the dates and you update if you have any new equipment and new employees. I guess a few changes on here this year. We during the school year last year, we lost Crystal Twitchell as a full-time driver, and we had Loretta Ashcraft as a part-time driver. And so she was able to take over that route for us. And then we had Pat Jones that was a substitute for us out in Montague. And he got to where he didn't feel like he could do it safely anymore. So he retired at the end of the year. And so that's why we're kind of in a bind with substitutes. We have Brad and Peggy Peterson. And sometimes there's some church calling stuff. If that comes back on again, that kind of has put Peggy busy on Tuesday afternoons, which is a big travel day with junior high trips a lot. And Brad, since he retired, that's helped us out a lot. And Terry Jensen's our third sub, but he likes to go to Arizona about the middle of December till the end of February. And anyway, we're really hurting this year for substitute drivers. Last year was probably about the first year that we've had trips going out. We didn't have enough drivers, and so we took the kids to the trip and then had to come back and run a route and then go back again and again. And that, it just adds some expense to your trips to have to do all those miles. Plus it leaves your kids up there basically stranded. And the state recommends that if we take a trip someplace, we need to keep a bus with them in case something happens, fire, whatever, that they have someplace to go. And, the other districts, of course, will help out, but, they just suggest that. So anyway, yeah, if you guys know anybody that would like to help us out, we sure appreciate that. Let's see, other than that, our new bus we had ordered and we were expecting it to show up here in the middle of July, but in the process of getting the camera system or radio system installed to it, and that the business that did that, somebody's husband's brother's mother's cousin was diagnosed positive with COVID, and the shop got shut down for several weeks. And that's why we don't have that bus yet. And the guy called me today. He's going to deliver it in the morning about 10:30, 11 o'clock. So we'll have that here in the district. Let's see.
A question.
Pardon?
And which bus is it going to take place on?
Well, it's going to be a 2021, so the number on it's 21. And then we have a couple of our older ones that we can probably surplus out at this time. But through the summer, there was rumors of, you're going to have more drivers and more buses and haul less kids per bus and stuff like that. And once they're gone, and they're pretty good old buses still. And so I just thought, well, let's just hang on to them for a bit and see what we run into with this thing after we get back into school.
But which bus is that one going to, number 21 is going to take the place of which bus here? It's on the route.
Oh, what route
Oh,
bus?
Loretta's gonna have the 21 bus and it'll be doing up in the
Okay.
Territon to Hamer stuff with that one. She had 14 last year and then we lost the engine in it. And so she finished out the year, well, I guess part of the year till we quit in March
Right.
in one of our substitute buses.
And which is the one we just finished fixing up?
It's
14.
the 14 bus.
That's the one.
Yeah. Yep, we have 13, 14, and 15, and they have a particular series of engines in them. And we found out now after the fact that they pump so much exhaust through them for the emissions part of it that it just eats the liners out of them and they die on us. The one only had 60,000 miles on it. This one has 104, I think, when it quit. And we have one more with 60,000, and then I'll be looking forward to putting a motor in it at some point. And materials, supposedly the materials they put back in them have been upgraded to handle the extra exhaust going through them. So hopefully they'll last longer the second time around, but you know.
And are we still on schedule to buy a bus a year?
Well, last year we skipped a year.
I knew we skipped a
Yeah.
year, but then I wondered
And
if we would
I
go
haven't
back
looked
on.
ahead
Yeah.
for next year or not. And one thing that kind of enters into that, and I hate to even bring it up, but I guess it's part of the bus buying schedule, is if Hamer happens to close
Oh,
one of our
not,
routes.
that's not, that's
I
not
know, I know.
asking.
But you know, I'll just throw this out there. It's just for the busing. It's not for that. But if that closes, then one of our routes will go away. And so that would kind of change our buying schedule on buses because that'll put us one route shorter. So
Okay, thank you.
then I guess the rest of that, it just has, well, we have all the odometers on the buses and kind of the areas covered by the drivers. And then we have, there's a little thing about safety busing. In March every year, we do a safety busing report. And basically that's a student count of everyone who's in 1.5 miles from the school. Because the state says if they're within 1.5 miles, we don't have to provide transportation. But other things enter into that if you don't have sidewalks or crossing guards, a few things like that. And it becomes a hazard, then we're okay to do that. So we have to go out and do an evaluation every year, how much traffic we have going by each of the schools and how many students we have there, and turn this report in every March. And so that's what the safety busing part of the report's on. And then I think the last part was our backing up stops. They recommend you not back up unless you have to in a bus. And we try and keep that to a minimum as much as we can, but those are just the areas that as of last year where we backed up. Of course, this year's a different year, so we might be adding or subtracting to that, to that information depending on what we end up with students and where they live and stuff. So.
All right. Is there any questions for Mr. Pincock? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, the floor would be open for a motion to approve the transportation program.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the transportation program.
Second that.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. School COVID reentry
All right.
plan.
A moment, you can leave.
We'll see if half the group leaves after this one here. So, let me just start with what a nightmare. What a nightmare it is to have to go through this from last spring to here. Not for me personally, because that's what my job is. I'm hired to do this, and if we take different approaches, it's whatever. But there's not a right thing or a wrong thing. And it also depends on a lot of different things going on. So coming with some of the letters that I have sent out with questions that have come up. One that I've heard a little bit through here is, are we dictated by Eastern Idaho Public Health? Dictated is a very strong word. And as I've talked with Eastern Idaho Public Health and visited with them, they have no intention to want to shut anybody down. There shouldn't be this fear-driven mentality that they're going to come shut us down. They're going to come and do this. What it comes down to is we have to remember that West Jefferson School District is a public entity, a public funded entity. that receives its funds from the state of Idaho. Jefferson County is a county within that state. And so the health department has guidelines that they give us, and everything they're telling us is they are guidelines. And there's always a level of, trying to think, it's been a long couple of days. Just a level that we have to take to make sure that we are not negligent in moving forward. And I understand that there are differences of opinion about COVID-19, whether it's a hoax, whether it was generated from a country across the sea, whether it was intended to make a certain president not be rehired. Whatever that personal opinion is, whether I share that or not doesn't matter. I have to present things that are looking for the middle ground and looking, because we do have patrons in the district that have that feeling. We also have others that have the exact opposite. And both of those individuals are West Jefferson patrons, and both of those individuals have students who come to the school here. And so all of the things that have been presented, it's a nightmare if you think that a superintendent would sit in his office and say, what kind of schedule can I mess around with parents right now and try to screw things up and try to make this so it's difficult. And what person in their right mind thinks that, who's going to take away the opportunity to go to an extracurricular or an opportunity? That is not the intention of what's been in place or trying to do, but we're trying to balance the guidance given from Eastern Idaho Public Health. Whether we agree with it or not, those individuals have degrees and are doctors. I've been to the doctor, but I'm not a doctor. So I can't go back and say everything that you're telling me is bogus. But at the same time, they're not saying they're going to mandate everything. So as I've received information, they say, well, if they're not going to dictate it, why can't we just ignore it all? Why can't we just throw caution to the wind and go forward? And as superintendent, I'm not at liberty to do that. If the school board would like to vote for that and go for that, that's completely up to your choice. But we do have to have caution that the plans that we put in place have to have some reasonable steps and things that we're taking to be able to adhere to the guidance. And so I wanted to put that out there, that all of this is guidance when it started. Now, also saying that this is always very fluid. As of today, you can see that this is 8/20/20 that I have up on the screen. The guidance from Eastern Idaho Public Health has been changed or amended. They're mentioning that as they get information and go forward, they will adapt to try to make it, whether they're trying to do it flexible or they're trying to make it just manageable. They want our economy to reopen. They don't want to shut us down. They say, we want to reopen and move forward. And so the one that's the most relevant to us is the indicators on when we move or are advised to move from one area to another. Initially, when we started talking about the plans in July, we were in the green area. That meant that we had less than 10 cases in the county per 10,000. I also asked the question at that time, if we don't have cases in West Jefferson, don't lump us in with Jefferson County, because we don't want to be lumped in with what's happening over in Rigby. We're a smaller community. They said, we can absolutely give you information. We can't give you specifics, but if you have members of your community that are testing positive for COVID, then we are going to have to follow the Jefferson County guidelines. So the night before our special board meeting on August 11th, 7:30 p.m. on August 10th, Eastern Idaho Public Health voted to move us from the green to the yellow, which really changed our mindset last minute, trying to go through it because we had to go with what was available. And at that time, we were over, the cases in Jefferson County were over the 10 level for 3 consecutive days. That's where they moved in, and they had the public, the county-wide mask mandate for public places. They've also had, at that time, the next level to orange was 20. And so you can see that as I was going, that the biggest change that they've made they've moved for the region from 20 to 50. And that changes so much of the pressure that we've had with all of the different plans, because as we were looking at this, and I'm going, oh my goodness, I'm trying to follow these metrics. We're putting plans into place. Let's see. You can see that this is the last 20 days, well, 19 days. And I believe today, Mrs. Delgado, did you check? What was that? I think it even dropped a little bit, which is really exciting for us. It's the 13 about 10 minutes ago. So 3 or 4 days ago, if we're looking at this chart, 20 was orange. And that was really, really concerning, going, okay, if we move into orange, what do we do next if that's what they're telling us? So I'm really glad that it's moved to 50, which gives us a little bit of buffer zone, and we're coming here. So the next issue that we really have to look at, because it looks like we're probably going to stay in the yellow range, and we have to make the decision, do we throw caution to the wind and just treat it like we're in green? Do we take precautions that we think might be helpful as we're balancing different calendars or different options or learning options? But what I can tell you is that we do have cases in this community. Without sharing information that's protected, we do have cases of people that live or work in our school district that haven't tested positive, but have had contact with people who have tested positive. And so we'll talk about that different information. So it's just a matter of time before we have a student who has those symptoms or an employee who tests positive. It's been said, and I've heard, well, that's easy, let's just don't test. If we don't test, then it doesn't exist. But we have to look at the symptoms. If kids or employees are having symptoms, whether they choose to test or not, we have to take the precautions with that. And it's not to be punitive, it's not to try to take away somebody's opportunity, but there are students and families that are coming to school hoping that there are some types of precautions and things taken into place to help keep them safe as well. And so, so that's the background behind it. Well, where are we at with this? So looking at the case portrait. So the initial schedule that was put out, pull that one up, that has come to be known in the last couple of days as option 1. This was put together trying to balance at that time when the cases were still at 20. We were looking to say, is it better for us to stay out of orange and stay into yellow as long as possible? Or is it better for us just to go headlong right into orange? And at that time, when it was 20, we were putting together a plan that we thought would be able to allow it. Initially, when we mentioned, well, if we went every other day, that would allow for cleaning. It would allow for cases that when we do get calls and people call and they're calling us every single day saying, I have a family member, Mrs. Turgot, can you touch that? If we have a family member that's tested positive, what do? Do we keep our kid home? Do we send them to school? What do we do now? And so this initial calendar was put into place with, well, how do we balance bringing kids back to school and allowing some safety precautions in? And the verbiage was initially every other day. And that verbiage stuck and people were going, okay, I want to see a schedule that's every other day. When it came up, I'm like, oh, I hate that because kids aren't in school. So let's try to get in school for 3 days. And the purpose behind this isn't to try to change the calendar, trying to maintain the calendar items like our professional days, which are built into the contract of the teachers. It's not that easy to change that. We would have to go back into negotiations, look at contracts. It's better for us to stick with the calendar that we have when you bring into account all of the teacher contracts that have to be in. We'd have to reopen that and revisit that if that was the case. So we're trying to stick with the calendar that was been approved by the board and also by the State Department and look at the days and not look at them as days in and out. And I get that as parents, same thing it happened in the spring, it was awful. In the spring, a lot of things got dumped on the parents. There was no follow through. The school didn't have a chance to bring kids back in and follow back up with what was happening. So this initial proposal was met where, well, let's have a way to spread kids out. We knew that we wouldn't have a lot of support with mask wearing, a lot of different reasons. It's hard. It's hard to wear a mask all day long. I'm trying it. It's hard. It's hard to have that in school. I get that. But that is a recommendation that they say can help stop the spread. It's not saying that it will protect everybody from doing it, but as we start to get people who are in contact with positive cases, that spread will start to happen. And for some, that's easier to accept. Some people are saying, let's have like the old fashioned days where they had the chicken pox parties. And they're like, let's do it and get it over with. But then you talk to some people that their symptoms are fine. And some people end up in the ICU for 2 or 3 weeks. And if I was gambling with my own kids, it would be easy for me to say, go for it. But when I'm gambling with everybody else's kids, it's a little bit more, it makes you pause a little bit and say, okay, how are we doing? Are we cautious enough? Are we too cautious? And those that have been close to me, as I looked at this, I'm like, is this the right thing? Is this the right thing to do? And I don't think there is completely a right or wrong. It's just something that we have to come to a consensus with and understand, why are we trying this? Why are we trying this? Not that it's perfect, but this is why we're trying it. So one of the strengths of this plan, but it's also a weakness, as I've had the different results, and I'll show the results here in a second, is that this would allow, as we were heading towards orange, in my mind, I was thinking, we need to get ready to have a better experience with online learning because last spring did not work. And this schedule would allow teachers to assign a homework assignment for online learning. The kids would have an opportunity to go and try that at home. The follow-up comes from the teacher the next day, not the parent. Whereas in the last one, the parent would have to give the follow-up, the follow-through, everything else. And it was really, really frustrating. This would allow students to still have some consistency. Yes, it wasn't consistent for parents because, like we said today, there was miscommunication. We had in the comments that were made earlier, we had a parent who didn't show up today because they thought today was supposed to be off. You know, I get that. There's been a lot of information we've been trying to get out, and it was confusing. But on the other hand, I thought that doesn't make sense not to be here in a week that there's only 3 days. We might as well try to be in for 3 days. And that's why initially it went from every other day to say, well, this has 3 days in the week. Let's put 3 days in it. This one allows us to spread it out. This day has a professional day. We can't change the professional day because of teacher contracts. We'd have to reopen that and go back into it. So this one, I thought, instead of going every other day and only coming for 2 days this week, let's try to fit 3 days in. I might have some people mad at me if I take away Labor Day. We could actually do that one if we wanted to, but, but some might like it, some might not. But you can see what it didn't follow the right pattern. And I could come in and propose a calendar where we went just Tuesday, Thursday, and spread it out. I don't know if we need to go further down that route, seeing that the orange level moved up. I think that gives us a different set of information to base decisions on as we're moving forward with this. But that was the reason of the initial proposal. It wasn't just let me roll the dice and go out there. It does kind of look like it happened that way, but that's the reason why I was trying to balance a proposal that we still had kids in school and still had a chance to practice the remote learning because we were heading towards orange so hard and fast because we were up to 18, you know, and I'm thinking we just have a couple more positive cases. And I with the calls that I've heard and the information that I've heard, we're going to spike again. We're going to go back up. We're going to have times where people get it out here. I'm grateful that it's 50 instead of 20 because that helps us with a lot of things. Question on this, Mrs. Cherry?
So this is my understanding, and you tell me if it's incorrect, but even though the health department gives us these guidelines and these recommendations, they check and make sure that you're doing whatever precautions, and then you can be legally liable for it. So they're not mandating it, but in a sense they kind of are.
And so the guidelines are there. I don't know if they're going to come and check unless we're held in gross negligence. That's the thing that would come down to it. If we say that this is our plan, and our plan was, even though we're in yellow, we're going to tell the health department that we know better, and we're just gonna have 5 days a week regular school. If we don't have things in place that we could go back and say, these are the things that we're offering, these are the things that we're doing, and a student gets it, an employee gets it, and they pass away. I don't want to, like, I've been through situations where I've had employees who have been in accidents and passed away, and that is not a fun thing to be part of. It's not going to be a fun thing if this type of thing happens. Now, that doesn't mean that we all get into a bubble now and say we can't have anybody get this. We have to find that balance. And as I'm hearing things from East Idaho Health, they're, you know, that as what they're saying is they want schools to stay in. They want schools to stay in. They don't want to shut us down, but they also don't want to have a spread like wildfire.
Sure. Because
there still will be the statistic that a majority of the people won't get seriously sick, but it's not just the hospitals that they're trying to keep open for COVID patients. They also have to keep it open for accidents and, you know, the different things as well in the hospitals.
So I just want it to be clear that when you say the board can throw caution to the wind and we can go 5 days and be normal.
You could.
We can, but we can be legally liable for it.
Correct. Yep.
So we just need to keep that in mind. Whatever the
you
decision.
You can do whatever, you know, the board can, and there are other school districts boards who have chosen to do that. And we don't always hear what those repercussions are. Those get posted on social media and it looks like a great idea. I get the text messages saying, hey, look what's going on over here. But when I call their district offices, visit with their superintendents, which I had a Zoom meeting today with other superintendents, they're trying to put together plans to help out with this. And really, I will do whatever the board asks. I'm proposing these things and just sharing that information, but you're absolutely right, Mrs. Cherry, that we still could be held liable. And it might not be those that are in favor of the 100%, yes. But if it's found that we are not taking some precautions, and I guess that's where the discussion can come, are they reasonable or are they too reasonable? It's the same question I was asking myself on this. Is this too cautious? And then other times I'm like, this isn't cautious enough. But I can tell you, I love kids back in school. I want sports to happen. Like, that's what I want in my heart. And so.
So if you went to the 4-day-a-week, which seems to be what so many people want, at least that have said to me, are we going beyond the bounds of being careful?
So let's keep going with that and looking at the schedule number 2 and just talk about the reasoning behind this. So this did come from patron feedback, and I appreciate when patrons are able to come and visit with me and problem solve. I see several that are in the audience that have been able to talk to me over the last year, not just on this COVID issue, that we can figure things out. We can figure things out as a district. We might, you know, we're learning. Like, if I don't want to say that this job isn't enjoyable. It's wonderful, but it's challenging. It's a challenging job, and I am not going to get it all correct. So I appreciate feedback that comes back to say, why don't you think about it this way? Why don't you think about it this way? So looking at this schedule 2, initially it was proposed to me, well, why don't we just go on the Fridays? That was brought up in some of the comments here. Monday through Thursday, go on Friday. I know that other districts are doing that. I also know that they're controversial depending on which group that you look at. I still think it would be beneficial if we're putting together a plan that the remote learning day is in the middle of the week, allowing our teachers to assign the day before and follow up the day after. By doing that, the Friday does not just become a day that it's an optional learning day, and parents will be able to use that however they want to. Now in the future, if our district wants to move to a 4-day school week, I will be sending out a survey about different things as we move into next school year. I don't think this is a time for us to say, let's get the 4-day school week now. This should be, what are we doing to help put precautions for COVID? This does allow for cleaning in the middle of the week. It also allows us to have a day's break when we start getting these phone calls of, what do I do? I have a family member who just tested positive. It gives us a chance to look and say, now, where was this student at? Do we have a direct do we have a direct line? And I'll show you. Well, I don't want to jump to that because it'll stay on the yellow calendar. Because I'll talk about that in the amendments. There are different things and guidelines that were given as what do we do to track these individuals and make sure that we're informing and when to inform others that may have been in contact with that. So having that remote day isn't as a weakness for a parent would be that this is in the middle of the week. A weakness for the school and for the COVID or the strength for the COVID plan would be it allows us to clean a day. It allows the teachers to get in the routine, because we could in the future still go to orange. It could happen when we start, and it might not even be that we're in the orange. Here's another thing to keep in mind. I'm gonna pull up just because we're in the yellow doesn't mean we might not go full remote. If we had enough bus drivers, where 1 or 2 bus drivers go down with COVID, that bus route's going to be probably shut down. If we have a handful of teachers that get COVID, we'll probably have to cancel school for that group of students because we don't have enough substitutes. It's trying to find that balance of like, oh yeah, if people get COVID, but if I have so many of my employees getting it at once, then we're shut down anyway. And so, like I said, there's no best scenario, but by having it in the middle, I feel like it would allow our teachers to practice the remote learning. It would allow the day to be in the middle. But that's, any other thoughts or questions on why it was proposed for Wednesday?
Well, I guess I appreciate that these people have come out, and it's not procedure, but I would like to hear what the board thinks and what the patrons think in an orderly fashion.
Well, I can show you the responses from it. With the, let's see. So from the survey, and this is the one that I send out in Spanish. So on this, from 10 patrons who are Spanish speakers, option 1, which would be the one that I first presented with every other day, 60% of those that filled it out would prefer to have option 1. When I asked the second question to the parents, let's see.
Was option 1 that first calendar?
Option 1 was the first calendar. Okay. That had the every other days.
Okay.
And so this one said that they plan to have 50% of their students, or 50% of them, so 5 out of 10 of these respondents said they want their kid in school in person. And then the 20% of that said they want to have an option in school where they have an online option or packet option. And the last one here said that they don't want to send their kid to school and they just want to see if it can stay home the whole time. So that tells me that there's some concern and worry about full-time with this result here. The English survey came out out of 223 respondents. 68% were in favor of option 2, in person. Now, I received three emails and 1 in-person phone call and 1 in-person conversation. And then some of those were also from people that are in this room that were wanting it on Friday. Other than that, I can't say one way or another whether they want it on Friday or they're okay with having that option in the middle. So from this data, it's hard to indicate whether, and that's not going to be easy because I know you want to open it up for discussion on this just to get a feel. Do you want it on Friday? Do you not want it on Friday? So, but you can see that most of them want a 4-day in person with 1 day remote learning.
Madam Chair, I don't think we should even worry about a Friday. Fridays, this is not for a vacation time. This is school. They should be in school every day. We should just be looking at what is best for the students, not what's best for a weekend. And if Wednesday is the best day to clean, deep clean between 2 days of going, maybe we should.
Here's my concern is when we talk about the calendar that we approved and we put all of those collaborations on a Friday, and now we don't have kids going on those Fridays, would it be better
to pick up another day during the week so that we go
to do Monday to Thursday? I guess depending on how many Fridays are off, because we're going to take them off for collaboration anyway. I don't know. What are you
I do have a question.
Mrs. Rigby has a question.
Okay. Go ahead.
My question is, we discussed this plan as going up until spud harvest, correct?
Yes.
So there's only one collaboration day from now until the harvest break. So we're talking one Friday. My concern with not going to school on Friday is there's no follow-up when an assignment's given. I'm not with my child at school, and I don't always know what assignments have been given. And so my child may not come home and tell me, oh, I have this and this and this to do on that Friday. And we may be waiting until Sunday night before they decide to mention that they have homework. Even if I'm the parent that's, okay, you're going to do this as soon as you get up in the morning, you know, there's always going to be that fight there with some students. So I don't know if a Friday having a long weekend is going to open it up for, hey, you know what, I've got 3 days. I don't need to worry about this assignment until the very last minute on Sunday, or I've got other things I want to go do, versus Monday, Tuesday, teacher gives an assignment. Hey, I know I've got to have it for Thursday, so I'm going to get it done Wednesday. The teacher follows up, so there's not that lag of 3 days versus 1.
Was the board able to hear all of that?
Yeah.
That, excuse me, that took in a lot of what I was gonna say. I can see the side of Friday being convenient, and a lot of things were said that makes Friday valid. But I also agree with that. I guess it's maybe because I'm a procrastinator as a person, and so if I don't have that follow-up, and I'm sure that's in my children, so.
You know, Madam Chair, if I can interject on that, just with your point about, you know, building off of what Mrs. Rigby just said, we could look at it both ways. Let me just play, you know, I don't want to, I'm not promoting one another, just looking at it from a different angle, because this is the plan that I initially see that would be the most helpful for teachers. And I'll get back to this point, because as we look at this, we have 65% of the teachers and staff also prefer a 4-day. But a lot of the things that's been proposed to the teachers and staff is that remote day is a chance where they have a chance to get back to it. So I don't hear the teachers saying Friday would be the best. They want to have 4 days in, but that's what they would want. And I guess that's the hard decision that we have to make. Are we balancing this between what maybe with looking at COVID, but it's still also early. We could try it, going back to my initial thought, we could try it either way till potato harvest and see where it's at, see where the numbers are at. And one way or another, I do have to agree with some of the comments that say, well, if you throw that day in there, are you really saving people from COVID? Probably not. Probably not. But
it goes back to being legally liable.
But it goes back to, are we taking the steps to be safe enough? Can you make it Where the bigger districts, I know with that, the Jefferson, the Bonneville, the Idaho Falls, those students and parents who are not comfortable with sending their kids, and we see that we have some that are there, they have an online option that goes directly to their school district. Our district being small enough, not being able to have the infrastructure put into place at this time, students that take an online option, like other companies, on YouTube Live, I don't want to advertise for them right now, but those students are no longer West Jefferson students, which we no longer have that funding coming in. And we know that we're coming off a budget year where we've had reductions. We're coming off a budget year where we've had cutbacks. And if we lose 20 students, and this is where, whether you call it a threat on one side or another, you have the group that says, if you mandate too many things, I'm pulling my kids out. You have the other group that says, if you don't have something in safety, I'm pulling my kids out. Either way, the district loses, because as we lose up to 20 students, we're going to be down another teacher next year. And I've had to do some unpopular things by combining classes and sharing schedules. That's because we don't have money just sitting around that we can have class sizes of 14 throughout the entire district. And so, I keep my hair short so the grays don't come in, but there's so many things that you look at on, okay, so coming back full circle, there's times to try it one way or another. I don't think there's one thing that says this is going to be able to save, but it allows us to be prepared for the future if we do have to go into remote learning. And we may have to go into remote learning, let me see if I can, even before we get to the 50, if we lose teachers. And so it's not just, let's wait for if we keep it under 50, we're golden. We're planning for unknowns in so many different scenarios.
So you said that, excuse me, the teachers haven't said whether they Wednesday, Friday.
The teachers right here, so this is the one I just pulled up on there.
Wednesday.
They want the 4 days in. The majority of them want it. But there's a 22.5% of the 40 teachers that responded. They were okay with that first option, feeling like they could reach some of those kids that were failing. So the plan on these remote days, because we're last spring, this is a point that I haven't made. Last spring, when we went to the shutdown, the governor had a no travel mandate. It was like a lockdown order. And it was difficult for me as a superintendent to say, invite some kids in during a non-essential travel ban by the governor who funds our entire school. That's not the way that we had to comply with that. Right now, they're loosening it up and saying, if you have a remote day, there's nothing against inviting kids who are struggling in, because the numbers are down. If you have kids who are incomplete or haven't finished their assignments, they could come in, work for an hour with a teacher in the classroom and get caught up on that. And that was one of the things that, as I shared this schedule with parents, or not parents, with teachers, they were excited about the chance of being able to help out. Now, some of that might have been the younger teachers that were thinking, I can bring this kid in and bring this kid in and help out here. But the mix is 4 days in person, 2 days, and the teachers were looking at this as intervention and not just a day off. That's what we're looking at with these plans. And that's where, with the yellow, or the middle of the week, this could still happen. It wouldn't happen as much, but we can still bring kids in. How much are we more likely to bring a kid in for intervention on a Friday or on a Wednesday? And so that's the thing where the Wednesday plan comes up, because if it's Friday, I think we lose that option of being able to intervene and really maximize that day. I know that that's a con for parents, that it's easier for their schedule. And so I know that makes it even a harder decision.
But these days off, these days when they're home.
Let's call them remote. They're remote learning. They're not days off.
Yeah, right. They are supposed to be working from 8 to 12.
8 to 12 is what and I'm telling our teachers 8 to 12.
Is what you are sending homework home
and
for.
when it hits 12 o'clock, be done. No more of this. The teacher didn't post it until a certain
And
time.
so even if you did give them Friday off, they still need to do that 8 to 12 before they're off to do their fun thing.
But it would be,
It would be that much harder for you parents to enforce that. I mean, we've lost a lot of school, and what your main goal has to be is your child needs to learn everything he or she can. And if they get Friday
Sorry.
off,
Wasn't saying about you, Mrs. Brick. It's just hot.
oh, I know you. I just think you have to think of the child and what he's missed and the chance that he has here to catch up if it works out like you said.
And I think we could, like I said, if it's made by man and we're men and women, it can be fixed by men and women. You know, it's like we're trying to do the best we can. And the proposal for today is that whatever we decide today, we stick with until potato harvest.
And I thought that's what we did the other day in our special meeting.
Well, I think because of
Do you think that the lowering of the cases gives us this confidence that we're doing everything we can?
I think I'm looking at this with 4 days.
Mhm.
I feel confident that 4 days will work.
Okay.
Whether the board decides Wednesday or Friday, I think 4 days will work.
Okay.
I'm at this time, my worry is more of when we start getting COVID in the school. And can we put a teacher back? Can we get a sub? If we have positive contact in the school, we might have grade levels or classes that are asked to quarantine.
Wow.
So that's where it's going to get a lot more exciting than just a yellow schedule 1 or yellow schedule 2.
Wow. So that brings me to the point of why then in our schools are the kids not wearing masks?
Well, that's something that as a district,
I don't want to
again,
mandate it,
it goes back to,
but how many kids wore masks these last 2 days? How many?
just depends on the time. I think the highest percentage is 30% at times during passing times. The lowest amount, I might see 1 kid per class. And one thing that we need to, as administrators and teachers, remind, we do have kids that want to wear masks and they feel very out of place. And there are comments made by peers saying, you know, it's hard. Why are you wearing a mask? You know, and that doesn't help, because you look back at some of the survey levels, maybe they're wearing a mask because there's a positive contact in their home. And that goes back to what, looking at my notes from my meeting with Eastern Idaho Public Health this morning, you know, they're not trying to, and this is again, they're not trying to pass everything on that's down from the CDC. CDC has come out with mask requirements. We just want a face covering, you know, like this one that I'm wearing wouldn't have the one that you're wearing. but what they're saying though is if an individual tests positive and they are wearing not while they're wearing a mask, but they're wearing a mask and they end up testing positive, that if there's another person that's also wearing a mask, that there can be some leeway in how the epidemiologist looks at it on how long that quarantine is. But it all comes back down to the fidelity of wearing it. And that's the part where it comes back down to personal decision. I know the senior class today, we were just talking about, you know, you want homecoming to come up. We want homecoming to happen. Looking at the numbers of 50, yeah, we probably can have homecoming still happen in some ways. But what's going to happen is it's going to hit us within. It's not going to be Eastern Idaho Public Health's 50 level that kicks us out. It's going to be that we have kids who have test, or like I mentioned before, if you're choosing not to test, if they're having symptoms here at school that are the obvious ones, we're going to have to send them home. We have to keep the kids safe if we're seeing those symptoms in the school. And the school has a legal right to do that. And if we don't do that, we can actually be held reliable for not at least taking that measure. And that gets hard when you're thinking, here you have a sports player. Like I saw how painful that was for spring sports seniors to not be able to finish their years. We had a chance at West Jefferson to have a track team have a 4-time state championship in a relay. And if I'm not saying that this will help, but if we can at least come to the middle and say, well, what are some things that we might be able to do to be able to help maintain that we can keep going on this? Like it's a nightmare when I hear people say, are you gonna make me wear a mask? I can't make anybody do anything. But this is the reason why. These are the reasons why behind the discussion. And so, you know, going back to the schools that have 4 days in a row, they have a mask mandate. It's mandated. Our district hasn't used the M word because we don't want to have the pitchforks come out, you know, and just say I'm pulling kids out. But at the same time, there's going to be a consequence when the COVID hits. And that's what we're trying to look at, saying, okay, what can we do? And I joked around in some of the meetings. I said, I'll wear a pink tutu if that would help keep COVID away, and we can keep our kids in school and have our sports teams have a fall season. You know, and maybe the tutu helps protect against COVID like the masks do. You know, there's, you know, depends on what you're looking at. But whatever we can do. And so we're going to continue to highly encourage, but I don't want to shame kids either way. And I don't want kids to feel shamed either way if on what they're choosing to do. And so,
Well, I just wondered if administrators talk to the kids about all this and what their responsibility is to try to be safe. Have we had
Yes.
talks with the kids?
I know in the older grades they have. Really in the younger grades, again, it's what the parents are going to ask.
Yeah.
We've had parents directly say, do not make my kid wear a mask. And so we're trying to find a balance.
I respect that.
Find a balance with that, and I respect it too, because
It's a horrible thing. It's
they're
terrible.
tough.
It's driving me
But
nuts.
but they don't have to have them on all the time.
Right.
They can take them off at different times.
And if a teacher feels like they need to have their class members wear the mask, we said
Yeah.
that they have to wear it.
We'll move into that here in a second because we have the amendments. We can get back to the calendar. So
Okay.
So here's another question. I haven't looked at the game schedules, but I understand why you like the Wednesday off. That makes sense to me, to have the follow-up with the teacher the next day. But will we get more seat time with the kids that are gonna leave on Fridays for games?
so with Friday games for right now, you're speaking strictly football.
Okay.
So I'm looking at football. Let me look at first football game is scheduled on the 28th. And that would be in Declo. So that would be a day where students would leave, the football team would leave early. So they would miss out on seat time.
What about cross country?
When you get into September, here's a question I could ask the board right now. I'm looking at Wednesdays all the way through September, and there's not one sport activity scheduled on Wednesday. But volleyball is scheduled every Tuesday, and they're at Aberdeen, at American Falls, at home against Salmon, at Firth. Looking at Thursday, volleyball is going Tuesday, Thursday. Friday are the football games. So we're away, then we're home and then we're away, and then we're home. And so
When do they leave?
So they would leave to go to Aberdeen around probably at least lunchtime. Thank you. So,
Hate that.
yeah.
I can see both ways, the Wednesday or the Friday, but I wonder if we do either one until Spud Harvest, and then, do you hate surveys? Are you sick of sending those out?
No.
Because I think patrons really appreciate it. I know as a parent, I appreciate it. I feel like they're listening. They want to know my opinion. If we send out another survey and say, is it working? Whichever way. Do the teachers think a different day would be better? I don't know. If we're gonna make a decision and go to Spud Harvest and then come back and say, okay, what color are we now? See if it's working currently, see if we need to change it up, do another survey. I don't know. I think we're gonna be yellow for a while.
So, and just to be out, I will support the board whichever way, whether it's schedule 1, schedule 2, whether it's Wednesday, Friday. I'm gonna leave it.
The only thing I can say good about that Tuesday volleyball is that they will have an assignment Monday or Tuesday that they can take home and work on Wednesday. They won't be caught so far behind.
Well, but you could also use the argument that they would miss out on the assignment that was given to them. But you could do
Yeah,
that on
I
either.
mean,
But you could do that on either day, on Thursday
Yeah,
or
we're gonna
Tuesday.
have to give a Monday. Let's give teacher Monday, what's my assignment for Tuesday also, if they miss. Why do we have athletics on a day in school?
Why do we have more?
Madam Chairman, I don't know if I can speak, but please, just think a little bit about the bus driving situation. I'm not kidding, we only have Peggy to drive. If any of us get sick, we want to go on a wedding, I mean, everybody's going to Peggy and saying, Peggy, I need this time, I need this time. Because you can't leave, who's gonna drive those gosh dang buses? You can't have school if we don't bring those buses in. And Friday is when the activity runs mostly are, and it's when most of the people want to leave for like weddings or something else. It's a big issue until you can find some more drivers. It's a huge issue.
You know, Madam Chair, I can see that point, and I also could see how when you're looking at convenience, I'm not saying it's convenient because it's a true statement with that. Our lunch personnel would also have to have an option of, you know, would still want to provide a lunch for those that want it on that remote day. And there's the potential that a Friday would be possibly easier for that lunch group as well. And so I think it really can go either way.
Wish we had a teacher.
Well,
Awesome.
so if you went Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, where's your
break? Where's your break? On how are we allowing it to be a little bit different? You know, and what other safety measures could we bring in?
The only one you're not bringing in, you're doing everything you can, you're just not mandating the mask.
Well,
and we're not going to do that, so I don't know. How do you?
so we keep this going. Andrea is going to be back from Utah before we finish the meeting.
Well, you know, I'm not far from Roberts at this point, so you're doing really good.
That's great.
If the floor will be open for a motion at any time. If someone
Unless there's more discussion or.
Curious, have the teachers been working with the students on the hand washing and all of that? Are they finding that has been effective for students following those guidelines that way?
We've only been, I honestly can't respond because I don't know enough information since it's only the second day. So that's something that we could work on more. We've talked with the teachers about that, but right now they're just trying to get into the schedule of things and.
Can we ask Mr. H for his input on that?
Mr. H, can we put you on the spot?
Hello.
Yes, Superintendent Lee, what was the question?
So Mrs. Rigby asked from Zoom, because the question that we first initially came up with is, are we doing, if the option is to go to a Friday, What other things can we put into place that would allow us to consider safety of the kids?
And Mrs. Rigby asked about the hand washing.
The hand washing, and are we doing that? Could we at least get maybe more support from even parents to say, wear the mask in the hall? Like, put it on in the hallway, take it off outside, do what your teacher says inside. That would, we're looking at something to say, we could mandate masks in the hall. That gives breaks, that allows us to do something. I know we're going, we have to have something somewhere. And so I don't know, do you want to get, Madam Chair, there's possible comments in the audience if you wanted to take one.
Well, there's one more thing. They're not giving the teachers that chance. You wanted to give them to distance.
We would have to do the best with the distance on Friday to Monday and follow up with it, knowing that it's not going to be perfect for everybody, knowing that some families will take that as a vacation, knowing that some families will choose to do what they want to. But our teachers will still be here from 8 to 12 with that. And, there is merit to having them in for 4 days in a row.
Well, yeah.
Mr. H, if you could go back to your teacher days, which, not to put you on the spot, but do you see one of them being more beneficial than the other as a teacher?
And you're talking the schedule?
What Wednesday versus Friday?
I've talked with Miss Coleman and Mrs. Hall, and this would be kind of my opinion too, back into my teacher days. I guess one thing, I'm for the 4-day week, have been for a long time, as far as just a Wednesday or Friday, if we're looking at the COVID thing of having that day in the middle to see if we've, if there is a case to organize and figure out, okay, what can we do now? What's happening as far as the instruction goes, looking at last year with the online learning, to me, the Wednesday off, not Wednesday off, Wednesday remote learning.
Thank you, Mr. H.
That makes more sense to me. Like the numbers that were shown about the original plan A, there were teachers that really liked it in the lower grades in particular, because they were excited about the idea of having small groups to be able to come in on those different days. And I can see the merit to that, but I also see the merit of, we need to be doing that regardless of whatever the schedule is figuring out as a school, how do we do the interventions with small groups, having everyone at school, regardless of their ability. But I think if we're going to use our schedule, our calendar to appease the, or to fill the requirement of that we're doing something to help avoid the COVID spread, I like Wednesday, if that's just a question of, is it Wednesday or Friday? And I think, I look at it this way too, that just by nature of Mr. Williams' plan for the calendar, that we're taking that many more Fridays that are not seat time contact with kids, which was for the direction that our district's going to go in of more PD and getting collective efficacy is what a big word is saying, going in the same direction. I think that just alone is something different that we're doing this year, that we could say, well, yeah, we're doing something different. We're not having as many Fridays contact with students. And so I think if we kept the calendar that everyone has hopefully on their magnet on the fridge, that we keep those Fridays protected, one, for what we want to do as a district, the professional development and our talking about kids and that kind of thing with their academic progress and looking at data. But if we have that and then do the Wednesday in the middle,
maybe I'm a bad example, maybe Mr. Williams is gonna talk to me afterwards, this just gets so hot and sweaty on me. And I saw a second grade girl screaming because it was tight, like a pair of pantyhose on her head, and she's like, I can't get out, and the effectiveness of the mask and the politics of it, I think our hand washing, for you, Mrs. Rigby, to answer your question, hand washing and the hand sanitizer, that's something that I think we have stepped up in the game. I would agree with Mr. Williams, as far as this goes, it's probably around 30%.
At the best.
Yeah,
Like,
I'll be in my office and take it off and then go out, and some of the times I remember to wear it in the halls, and then if there's a parent that I'm talking with, we wanted to kind of match them, and if they're not wearing a mask, then I take mine down. And if there's a parent wearing a mask, I try to bring mine up. If dad's wearing a mask or mom's not, and it's half and half, then I just put it up.
Not to muddy even more as we're discussing, I'm just sharing the data with it. What's more restrictive or less restrictive when it comes to the numbers? Initially, when we were given the number of 20, trying a Friday wasn't as appealing. I'm gonna go back to the numbers again. Here's the thing, we could try Friday first, because is it easier to I guess the question is, it easier to go to something viewed as more restrictive, or if we get through this month and we're finding that we do need a day in the middle to contact trace and have spread, as we're getting the positive cases showing up, maybe that's when we come in up at the next board meeting on the 17th and say, this Friday part is not giving us the time that we need to do what we need to do. And so that's something that could be considered as well.
You go by the survey you sent out, the teachers overwhelmingly wanted that Wednesday. And I think they're thinking of the kids. I think that's the main reason they wanted it, is because they feel like that's the best day, that they can be out and still learn the most. Isn't that the feeling you get?
I think so, but because we're not voting on a entire school year and we're voting on 4 weeks.
Yeah, that's why I thought.
That's the thing, we're voting on 4.5 weeks right now.
Right, but it's a critical 4.5 weeks.
Well, that's going to be another discussion, because when potato harvest comes in, there's other feedback that comes back that maybe they lose it anyway.
Let's talk about not having
so
a vacation.
Did we bring up the two? We had our transportation department brings up Hamer Elementary. You're bringing up potato. Do you want to keep a superintendent in here, or?
I went for a football team.
We're gonna get back on track.
Use that gavel.
Well, we really do appreciate you guys coming out, and I want to hear from you. I want you to love your neighbors when you leave here, so please be civil. But if anyone has a comment.
Keep it short, Friday, Wednesday, we don't need to keep going, so.
All it is this is the schedule you proposed to us. It wasn't Fridays. So this is what we voted on. So I want you to consider that. We voted for the Wednesdays off. Friday wasn't an option.
Okay.
Right.
I go for the Wednesdays off. That's what I voted for. So I like it in the middle of the week. Because if my kids are home on Friday, they're not going to be doing remote learning.
Mindy.
I'm the same on the schedule, and the comment about the wearing the masks in the hall. I've talked to my kids about it and told them to put their masks on in the hall, especially for junior high, like 5th, 6th grade, because that's what was asked of them in the papers that we got from every teacher. And I said, if your teachers are saying, yes, put your masks on in the hall, do it. My kids are currently following what the trend that everybody else is doing, which is no masks anywhere. So those of us parents that did talk to our kids about it, it's kind of futile because it's not being enforced. So
Agreed with that. And that's what I'm seeing. We're in day 2, and so got to give me a chance to.
Yes.
But you're absolutely right.
But
that's what I'm seeing as well.
There are some of us that have talked to our kids about it. I've talked to all of my kids about it, not just the oldest, but all of them, because Mrs. Hall mentioned that even kindergarten they were going to wear their masks in the hall, which is fine with me. And I've talked all my kids out of it. But if the majority of the kids are not doing it, my kids probably won't either. They're not afraid of it. So just, and yes, this is the schedule we voted on, so I'm good with that.
As a teacher, I would go for the Wednesday off if we can't have a full 5 days, but if we're thinking about the education of the kids, then Wednesday would be the best day.
I do Wednesday too, but I hate mask mandates. I hate them with a passion. But if you can come up with some kind of incentive, like, hey, if we catch you wearing your mask, maybe you'll get a prize or something. No, I don't know. But
Something they can
just-
eat through the mask.
I hate that we have, are told, like, you have to wear a mask everywhere you go. And
Right.
that's where I'm gonna fight it.
Sean,
I'd go with Friday, because I think Wednesday we hold everybody up and then they have to regroup against Thursday. And my kids sure as heck gonna procrastinate. Taking Wednesday off is not gonna make them not procrastinate over a weekend. I think that wasn't. They're gonna procrastinate anyways.
Colby.
I agree with Sean on that. If they're gonna procrastinate Friday, they're gonna procrastinate Wednesday.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt yellow schedule number 2 until spud vacation, and we revisit it at that time.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Andrea, are you still with us?
I am.
Okay. Those in favor of schedule number 2?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes.
And let me just say, as we've gone through this process, both sides are still going to be looked at. This doesn't mean that it's going to be like this we're in a pandemic and we have to reassess. And if we get through and things look different, we can always look at a different option as we get into the next. We have to be fluid and flexible that way. And I know that's, I had those nice cute magnets made. It's just kind of throwing all that plan out. But I appreciate also our community being able to have differences of opinions and be able to do it in a respectful manner. That's something that our school board and myself, we've been really priding ourselves on, to be able to, even if we have differences of opinion, we can go through the motions of showing respect to one another. So I just wanted to take a moment and thank our community for that.
I know I should have asked this when you had it open earlier, but if we go back into green, is it inevitable that we will go back to 5 days? Okay,
Yes.
Thank you.
Normal. Okay, COVID amendments.
Okay, let me just close these. So this,
144.
yep, let me just get back to the COVID amendments. I did have Eastern Idaho Public Health review our plan. And this is just part of the process that they don't mandate it. And I was thinking that they were going to come in and make a lot of changes. They actually found a couple typos in it. And so I didn't have Mrs. Perkins find them first when I sent the other one out. But the amendments, and so I highlighted the areas that were, so this is the plan that we've had out going through. And I've highlighted in here the different ones that they've asked. So, and I've crossed out the ones that they were saying. So on that third bullet down, stay home if you are sick or remote home for 72 hours. We wanted to be a little bit more specific. They're mentioning that there's not a 72-hour number that's coming out. There's a 24-hour number that's in there, and that's based on the COVID decision tree that I'm just going to put in here. So stay home if you have COVID symptoms. That way it covers whether or not you're tested or not. If you're having COVID symptoms. Now, granted, we still want to have some flexibility, because when you look at those COVID symptoms, I think I've had COVID for the last 2 months when it comes to well, just with like the sneeze, like the runny nose, the hay fever. We also don't want to go crazy here and be, anytime anybody sniffles and the comment that we're gonna, run a thermometer on them and send them out. But we're trying to be very cautious that, especially the major symptoms that they're having. And so if you've had direct contact, this is another one that would be added to the plan. If you've had direct contact with someone who has tested positive for COVID or has the COVID symptoms, follow the COVID decision tree. We have to ask parents to help follow this, and really this is what's they've been asked. but it's going to be very difficult for us to be able to know exactly everybody that, whether they have the symptoms or not. It's going to be impossible for us to be able to detect that. And so the COVID decision tree the CDC has, and this would be on there, that if you've had, let me make that a little bit bigger for Mrs. Cross. Is there a way you can move that, the picture just out of the way a little bit, or minimize it, or, okay. So this is saying if you've had close contact within 6 feet or more than 15 minutes, that's the key word that the health department is saying. That's the part where we have to say, okay, if I'll just use this as an example up here, since we've been within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes up here. And let's say that I've tested positive for COVID. That means the recommendations is that you would want to quarantine yourself or self-isolate to monitor. Again, that's going to be one that we can't completely track. We have to trust the families to do that. And so the symptoms, and again, some of these symptoms that we're talking about, fevers, chills, those are the ones that I think are the major ones that parents, well, they're all part of it. We just have to have caution with it. And so going back into the amendment, let me just keep going through the amendment because I could. Oh, hold on. There we go. I'll just get through this. And so that's a green. They want that all the time, whether we're in green during the time of the COVID until there's a vaccine. That's what they want, is for people to be able to help stop that spread. So the yellow, and this is where we're at, and it looks like we're going to be here for a while, and unless, of course, we have to do more extreme ones based on our staffing and options. So I put in here in the yellow, option 1 or option 2, or an option voted on by the board. And so it looks at this, like at this time, we're going to go with option 2, and that's what will be plugged into that spot. I just had the same language on the COVID decision tree built into it. And in the yellow, and this is one that that took a lot of pressure off of us, because initially when they came out with their different levels, they had a number of people that were available to go to a certain event. Mm-hmm. And it didn't make sense, because what about an outside event? Mm-hmm. And, and I'm hoping that on our football game that we have coming up, that we have more than 150 people show up to the game. So what they're saying is that you need 28 square feet per person to be able to allow for that to happen. What that looks like is about 32 kids in a classroom. So if you have a classroom, which we are hitting that level, so we can allow that. And so that's why I wanted to put the 28% or 28 square foot, because that allows us more flexibility than just having a number based on the venue. This allows us more clarity. The orange suggestions into the orange transmission is basically the same thing. So if you have COVID symptoms and following that, our current orange plan, and I guess we don't have to really go into the details of this. If we do get into that level, the next best step is to limit the number of students at school so they can spread out more in a classroom, more than what we're able to do. And that's where it's proposed that it would be a blue and white day. 50% of the students come on one day, 50% is coming on another day. And so that's the suggestion that was here. And then red, and what it's been told with red, where in the spring, we're cautious because we went from green to red, just like that. And that's what the state went to, the entire state went that way. The only time that red will come into play, and this is where the fear of Eastern Idaho Public Health coming and shutting us down, or looking at trying to come in and mandate certain things, is if the hospitals are having such a run on their medical equipment. But if we're in that one where the ICUs are completely filled, that's when Eastern Idaho Public Health will say we are moving to red as a region. I think it's going to be very obvious to everybody. Whereas last spring it was, what? We don't have anybody in the county with this, and we're closing down the school. Mm-hmm. But our hands were tied at that time, and that's what the direction was. Seeing if I have anything else. We have through here, strongly encourage wearing masks. That's the language that we're using.
Can I just add?
Yes, go ahead as we're going through.
Can we make sure tomorrow, Mr. H, can we make sure tomorrow that every kid takes home a note that they will be going Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday.
We can do it.
Wednesday will be distance learning.
Yep.
So
Yeah, we can't ensure that it'll make it from the bus to the house or from the backpack.
So we'll also send it via Facebook and Ed Leo as well.
I got a text from one of our teachers that said they are practicing hand washing in their own classroom. She monitors it to make sure they do a good job. And she does have the students wear the mask in the hall every time. But a lot of kids have already lost their masks. And we might have to buy more.
Yep.
So.
We're all wearing masks too. Mrs. Hall is keeping her masks at school for the kindergarten. And she washes them.
Oh, wow.
Just, I know she's like.
And we're almost finished with the washing machine here in the, Mr. Soderquist was putting a washing machine here in the elementary as well. And that should be done within the next week.
Awesome.
I signed the requisitions to get, they better be nice ones.
That is something that you can do.
So they're gonna write their name on the front of it. Write their
I
name
should
on
send
it.
this back a slide, but can we, if we're gonna go with this schedule till spud harvest, can we make sure we send a survey out that says that's happening till spud harvest? Here's.
As we get feedback coming to the next board meeting, what are you thinking? If I,
You like Wednesday, you like Friday?
yeah, so if I,
Hopefully we'll be back in the green
Friday
after spud harvest.
so let me pull this up.
But also take Wednesday as an option too. Right, you have more options.
And there might be some things that also change if COVID cases happen at the school, that we start to get our hands forced a little bit with busing or with that might be a better option that way. So option 2. So if that survey was sent out, if we give it a couple of weeks to try the Wednesday, and we have that survey sent out like on the 10th of September, which would allow for a full week, that's a good suggestion. So those were the amendments on for the COVID plan that were presented after having Eastern Idaho Public Health look at it. The board have any questions for me on these proposed changes or have any other changes and additions that they would like to propose?
When it says no visitors in the school, does that include parents?
Which level was that at?
Orange?
If we're in orange, that's at the, I was thinking about that same thing if it was at 20,
right,
to take that out. But now that we moved it up to 50, I think it's I think it's still reasonable, but
I
that's
noticed
good.
it, sorry to interject. I noticed at registration, PTO had sign-up sheets asking for parent volunteers to volunteer in the classroom. Are we still allowing that?
Her question was, are we gonna still allow parents who sign up to volunteer go into classrooms when we're in orange?
In orange we wouldn't be able to, but I think we can. Let me see. It says no visitors in orange. Do I have that in yellow?
Yellow, they still wear masks.
I think we keep it as is in the yellow, because by time we get to that point, we can amend later on as well if we start to get closer to that and we see that that's a problem.
If they are coming into the classroom in the yellow area, are we asking them to wear a mask? Just like teachers are being asked to wear a mask when they're
I'm sorry,
in close
Mrs.
proximity.
Rigby. I can't grab the gavel. I really wanted to grab that.
The board can't hear, Mrs. Rigby. Can we please be quiet?
So-
Go ahead again, Mrs. Rigby.
I'm wondering in yellow if you're going to be asking the parent volunteers to wear a mask, just like the teachers are wearing a mask when they're in close proximity to students.
Right now, if they're in their yellow, it says they're required to wear a mask.
I think if they're going into the classroom, and that might make the PTO president mad because nobody's gonna sign up to do that. I think that we probably should have masks in the hallway. And then in the classroom, it's under the direction of the teacher, just like we've been doing. And maybe we can spell that out. What are your thoughts, Mrs. Rigby?
On mask wearing?
Well, what would you propose it to be?
Well, I'm just going off of like Mr. Writing in his class. He specifically said during school registration that when he was giving instruction at the front of the classroom, he would not be wearing a mask. But anytime he was in close proximity to a group of students doing one-on-one answering questions, he would be wearing a mask. I would think for the safety of the patron volunteering in the classroom, where it's been said that children are asymptomatic most times, that they would want to protect themselves as well as the student. And I would like them to wear a mask if they are working with students in a small group.
Okay, so we do have that in the current plan. It would just be making sure that we follow through with that and post it and communicate it.
Okay.
So the way I read it, from the time I walk in that building, I bet I am required to wear one.
As a parent.
We want to amend the language.
Do you want to amend the language to say visitors to the school that enter classrooms or past the office or enter the school further than the office or?
Well, unless you want to police that, because I don't.
Well, when they're let in, we're only letting parents in, aren't we? And
yeah.
So when they are let in, they should have a mask to precede the secretary that lets them in.
If they go past that.
If they go past that, should be.
And we do have disposable masks that are available there that we could say, if you go, if you're going further in to, well, come on in, Mrs. Rigby.
Yeah, I think we need to.
That's quite the board meeting to leave Utah and then be able to make it.
Started in Salt Lake.
How fast were you driving? I was kidding. And so this is what we have. I know we have to pick and choose. We can't make a plan where it's like, yes, like, again, we have parents who want their kids to wear masks all day long.
Mhm.
I think it's a reasonable thing to say if you're entering into the classroom with a student who's not your own, from a parent and a family that wants to be safe, we probably need to respect that. And if that's something where the person who wants to volunteer can't live with, I guess that's the choice that we do have to have some things to protect the individuals. I had this, we're looking at these decisions and it's not always majority vote. We're Democratic Republic, not a complete democracy. And then there has to be a reason to protect some of those that don't have the voice. So I think that keeping that in there and just making sure, I do have one administrator that's here, that we inform our secretaries, if they're coming to the office and just stopping right there, but if they pass that, if you're going further, please do this. I know we have the pickup, maybe if we just say right there, right where the kindergarten pickup, we're okay, but we'll let Mr. H figure that out, and he's gonna be the one that places it.
So do we need to amend that then?
It says it in there.
I think just visitors to the school are required to wear masks, but we will interpret that as saying past the office. Then that way we're not going through a bazillion, masks that get thrown away as soon as they come right there. Because our secretaries also have masks that they can choose to use as well.
All right. Was that all?
Those were the only amendments that were brought up on the regular plan.
Okay.
So
The floor would be open for a motion to approve the COVID amendments then.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the COVID proposed amendments.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Any further discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Thank you. The athletic COVID plan is
All right.
5.
This is where the orange plan does help us have the flexibility, and I'll be able to respond to some of the questions. So the athletic COVID plan does follow the same guidelines that are in the other plan. What we're really finding when it comes to how can the goal of this entire thing is trying to figure out a way that we can preserve the seasons for the kids on our athletic plans. And what we've been told is probably our worst, I don't want to say the worst enemy, but the worst chance of an athletic team being stopped is when there's positive cases within the team. I know that puts pressures on teams because now they're going to say, I'm going to try to hide this the best I can. We have to trust our parents. We have to trust our kids. We have to trust our coaches that they're going to take the steps and err on the side of caution. We have talked with our teams and have encouraged them to wear their masks with the information that was given from public health, that if 2 individuals have masks on and one of them has it, that the viral load that passes on is less. Maybe not in every single case, but that's what they're saying is the viral load can be less, which can increase or decrease the possibility of more sickness. And when student athletes are wearing masks and we can verify that they've been wearing them appropriately, the quarantine time can be reduced by an epidemiologist based on that information that they're given. And that's not going to be something that as administration, we go back and pull up the camera and try to chart how many times we know who's wearing them, who's not. And that's a risk that they take. Some of the discussions are that, yes, you have the opportunity to not wear one, if that's your choice, but it also could impact others. And I hope it doesn't. I hope we can roll it, but again, I'm not sure. It's one of those things that looking back on it now, we should have stayed in school. But we're now starting to see people who are sick in our community. And so that's the part where we still want to learn from what's in the past, but we don't want to throw all caution out. So the proposed amendments from this is with green, which we're not in, we'll be able to just follow the basic symptom monitoring and pretty much the games happen as normal. In category 2, this is where we do start having some different places where we want to have precautions in place where kids are on the buses. Again, when we say transportation will take place with mandatory face masks, we're using the same language as a mandatory, what's mandatory here. But if kids are on the bus, we're not going to make them like suffer. Like we're going to work it out. We'll make it work. But the plan here shows that we're doing our best to make sure that there's some help with that. If we're out of town into different areas, parents are going to have to work with families to make sure that they have the foods. Now we're going to allow parents the option to take their own children to the games. Instead of that, they will have to sign out at school and get into the car with their parents. What we can't have happening is parents signing their kids out and then putting another kid into another family. That would undermine what we're trying to accomplish here, and also put liability on those parents for that. And so looking at the things that were changed are in the yellow. As we were looking at that, we were talking that concessions would not be provided. After re-looking at it with the numbers changing, prepackaged food products and drinks only will be allowed still during the yellow. So that will be something that is going to be proposed to the board for a change. Everything else in the orange, this is one where people were saying, I'm hearing that you're not going to let parents come in. I hear you're not come parents in. This there it goes. Not that one. Sorry. Trying to this one. Moving this to 50 has helped me sleep a lot nicer at night, because we were skirting right with that 20 and I did not want to have to be the one that says you can't come. and knowing that if I was trying to justify saying, yeah, I'm going to have my parents show up with their masks or their pink tutus on, whatever they can to come in, people were going to want to come and they were going to want to do it the way they wanted to do it. And that's just the way that some are in our community. And I'm glad that we don't have to go there now, because at this time, if we do go into the orange, it's going to be pretty obvious and it's going to be pretty bad. And so the proposed amendment, let me just pull that up, in the orange is that we would only allow parents of the athletes in instead of no spectators. And I'm going to have some people say, well, what about my son or daughter? I don't know. We can amend it later if we need to. But if we have 50 cases going on, there's a pretty good chance we're not going to have a lot of games anyway. Because if we're getting close to 50, there's probably teams that have positive cases, and it's not just going to be our community that we have to worry about. If we're playing an opposing team and they have the case, games can be canceled anyway. So I think this is a fair one to put in there, that only the parents can come during the orange. That changes it. We'd allow parents from others to come as well. And looking at that, if it's an outdoor event, I think we can spread out. We don't have to be as strict with the mask, but if we're indoors, that's going to be another thing that as administration, it gives us a nightmare, because we're going to have people saying, I want to come still, and I want to come and not wear a mask. But if it's indoors, we have to have a different discussion with that. And that's even how it is in the yellow. If it's indoors, we're going to really encourage that masks are there, or some type of covering. Or if you get there, get far away from people, or something where it's not, I really don't want it to turn into a situation where patrons comes, and I'll just be candid, and basically look in my face and say, what are you going to do about it? You going to come and get me out of here? That's embarrassing. That's embarrassing and very uncomfortable for somebody who doesn't get paid to be there to help adults act like adults. It's hard. And I hope it doesn't happen, but it probably will. And it's going to put, and some people say, I have a right to come to a game and act how I want. No, you don't. The game is an extension of the classroom, and we still have rules. Even if you paid to get in, we will have to do that. Now, that's not a threat. That's just, I'm pleading for people to just be reasonable when we do that. Outside events, we're going to encourage it. You'll see that we have signs that say, we're in a mask mandate. We want you to do the very best you can. But on the indoor ones, we're trying to preserve the season for the kids. And that's what it really comes down to. I had one patron call me, and this is a patron that, if I was to guess, would have been anti-mask. And he said this last spring, with the activity that my kids went, they mandated masks. And he said, we have to do that if that's the only chance we have. And he's like, I can't be at board meeting, I can't express that, but if that's the only chance I can have, I would like to do that. And so it's not everybody that's saying, I hate masks at all costs. And we're trying to do the best. Outdoor activities, we can have flexibility. We're still going to ask you to do it, but I'm not going to go around and say you have to do this. But it's indoor, it's a little bit different, and we're just going to ask really for support. So those are the two proposals that we have with the athletic ones. And I feel good about being able to allow parents to come even if we are in orange. And so initially we didn't, just because of that information. And so.
Did we follow through with this, that at the beginning of the year, or the school year, that the teachers explained to the kids that they're not to make fun of kids in masks? They're to
well, we're the second day in, and it needs to be readdressed.
It does. It does. Because that will stop them from wearing that mask faster than anything.
Well, I know with my own son, and I'm like, hey, you're kind of stink to be the son of the superintendent, doesn't it? Like, you're darned if you do, darned if you don't. And you know, I just said, guys, do what your teachers ask. But if you need to wear it, wear it. But I can see the wheels turning in my son. I was 5th grade before, and it's hard to get and maybe it's not teasing, but if somebody comes in and says, why are you wearing a mask? You know, that's gonna be like, oh, and you're right. And it's gonna be something that we're gonna ask parents to help us. Hey, if people are wearing a mask, don't make a big deal about it.
And if your teacher requires you to, it means that she has some problems in her life that she's trying to.
And our teachers have talked with the students and they've set up boundaries in there. I think a lot of the teachers have, like Mr. Writing, who gave that example, that Mindy gave, the teachers that are, they're setting those boundaries up. And I have not heard anything, I guess it's 2 days. The kids are being respectful to the teachers on that we're working with. We're not seeing issues with that the teachers can't live with.
Okay.
So that's a great question. Any questions on the amendments for the plan or questions?
All right. The floor would be open for a motion then to approve the athletic COVID plan amendments.
Madam Chair, I'll make the motion that we approve the athletic COVID plan amendments.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Any further discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Attendance requirements.
So I did not get the attachment in here, but I wanted to have with everything else, the policy, well, not the policy, it's the legislative code that talks about mastery learning. And so I can actually find that. Let me stop sharing, Mrs. DeGraw, and
I can do all the good things.
I know, which one do I go to on that one? Desktop there?
At the top, where on the very top of your screen, it
Mhm.
should have a green bar. And it should allow you to click on that.
Oh, stop share there. Got it. Let me just find this if you don't mind. Do we need a recess at all?
Does anyone
Does
need 5 minutes?
we have a recess?
You want?
All right. We will take 5 minutes and come back.
Back.
Okay, we're gonna go back in session. And we are on 4.6, attendance requirements.
All right. Mrs. DeGrani, to share screen again. Let's see. I'm just looking for Zoom. Okay. I'm not seeing the.
You can't see share down there. Let me turn it off and then turn it back on.
Is that gonna kick everybody off?
No, just the only host can share, and then I'll turn it back so participants can.
Oh, back to meeting. There we go.
Perfect.
Yep. Okay. All right. So, Madam Chair, 4.6 is one that we have talked about at several different meetings, and this would actually lead into the question of with the question from Mrs. Smith during the questions. Why am I grading going that direction? And so with mastery-based and blended-based, as we've been sending teachers to conferences to learn about standards and teaching to the standards and identifying the standards, we are also creating assessments that allow us to be able to target and identify the exact things that the kids are learning. And so we still can have letter grades. There still will be letter grades A, B, C, D, E, and F. And this is something that as our teachers, the traditional way of teaching is you give an assignment, you take a test. And we gave the example of, if I'm I gave this at one of the community meetings. I'm a teacher and I give a test and the kid gets a 50%. They scored a 50% on that test. I give it again, they scored a 50%. They do that for 9 times in a row where they get a 50% on that. I give it a 10th time, I want that student to really learn that, and they ace it. Like something clicks, developmentally something changes throughout the year. You can see that in kindergarten, you can see a lot of things with that. What grade should that kid get? And so the question is, if we take the traditional method of taking that, you would take the average of all those tries, and that student, I'm not a mathematician, so I don't want to say, but they would get less than a passing grade. Mm-hmm. And so even though at the very end of it, they learned it, the traditional method of grading says, sorry, do you remember all those times that you didn't get it? I'm here to remind you that you did not get it. And it's not that we're trying to lower the bar, it's trying to say that this is the bar and we're going to help you get to it. This is such an important thing that we want you to learn. And so it's going to take time for our teachers as we've been training them. And traditionally it's different than I think everybody in this room. We were used to that this is what we do. And we want grades to reflect what the kids are learning. And to do that, there's a way to rethink about this. Now, like mastery-based learning and blended learning. Right now, we're kind of pushed into a blended learning model. We're pushed into it like we're learning at home, we're learning at school. We're pushed into it because of COVID, but there's some advantages that we can look at that to try to work with. And so I put this on here, even though I don't feel like we're ready to make a vote tonight. I think it's something that next month our plan is to have the strategic plan in place. And we've put into our strategic plan from the past 2 or 3 different board meetings language that professional development, we're looking towards mastery-based, we're looking towards strategic-based. And so our teachers have to start trying it sometime. And that's why we're seeing it, and that's why it was probably unfamiliar. Could we have done a better job of explaining it? Yeah, we probably could go there. But part of it is we're not going to have a finished product before we get there. If we were trying to have a finished product where we said, this is what's going to happen every step of the way, we would never get to it. And so our teachers are taking small little steps. Some grade levels are taking this on more than others. And it's easier to do with some levels. I know with Miss Coleman's first grade, she's already doing this with her level. So she did this last year. And it makes sense, especially when you're looking at a second grade or first grade level, I should know where my teachers are at, the first grade level, we have different assignments that we give kids, reading assessments. And I, when I was a teacher, I remember those reading passages. So there was a time when a student took a test and they missed a couple questions. The teacher came back and said, look at this one, why did you miss that? And the student goes, oh my goodness, I didn't mean that. I just misread that. This is what it means. That shows that the student knows what it is. Why is it that a teacher goes, sorry, I have to punish you and make sure that you get that lower grade because that's what you did? This is the process of rethinking what to do. Now, in 2015, this isn't new, the legislature put into Idaho code, and this is 1632. I did not get this put onto the board agenda, but I will make sure that it gets loaded up so we can go back on that. The legislature finds that moving towards mastery-based education where students progress as they demonstrate mastery in subject is in the best interest of Idaho students. Now there's a continuum on mastery-based learning. And I'm not looking at this to say that we want to go to the far edges. We have to take baby steps, and maybe one day it could build into something that the board and district wants to continue. But at the one pendulum of mastery-based education, students could progress to different grade levels based on that. We would have to have the infrastructure and teaching support to do that. But the initial steps of mastery-based learning is that our teachers have to identify their standards, and we have to have rubrics and assessments that assess that. So we really know our students learning what we want them to learn. What do we do if they don't learn that? What do we do when they do that? And and can the students explain that? So that's what this whole process is. And I highlighted down here that districts can move towards this. And to do that, a school board would be able to put into their plan and say, we want to do that. And as we look into September, when we look at our, we vote on our continual improvement plan and our strategic plan, this is something that I want to get feedback from as we're moving forward to start going that direction. And plans must include process to develop rubrics, assessments necessary to determine mastery and award credit. Again, this will not happen. It's going to be impossible if you're going to come in and just try to have it all in place where the teachers hit the ground running. It has to be built bit by bit. Another part about this, that why the blended learning and mastery learning was really starting to come out, not just because of the PLC conferences that we've been to, which support this type of learning, but also the rules and regulations that are in place for funding of students in a situation like a pandemic, where we don't, the traditional model of providing funding to school districts is based on students that come to school in the seat. And that type of model really holds us, I don't want to say hostage, but it complicates things, because with our support units, and we've talked a lot about that in our past meetings, that we have to have at least 21 kids in a class to get a support unit from the state to support a teacher. But that's the reason why I say 21 is because the rubric says 20, but it's 20 on attendance. And so even if we had 20 kids in a class and had 100% attendance, the state of Idaho only will give a maximum of 95% average daily attendance. So we're getting trimmed every little bit when it comes to getting the support units. So those classes that have 24 kids in a class, by the time they take into account the days that kids missed and average out all the different things, we're not getting paid for 24 students. We're getting paid for probably 18 or 19. And that's why it's tricky to make sure that we have, we have to have some classes with lower class sizes, but we can't have all of them, or else we're not going to get enough funding from the state. But mastery-based learning allows us to have flexibility in that. By having that, we can count it based on the work that the kids are doing. So if we had a pandemic where kids are staying home, it allows us to still put this plan in, and they don't hold us to the same rules, because this is Idaho code and they say that we can do that. But in order for that to happen, the school board just has to vote on a proclamation saying, we're moving towards this. This is what we want to do. And that's why initially I had on the agenda, when I put that together with Mrs. Cherry to have attendance requirements, mastery, blended learning. But I feel with everything else that we've gone on with, I would feel comfortable if the board postponed this decision until the next board meeting to put it with the strategic plan. And so, any discussion or questions?
The floor be open for that motion then.
I move that we move the attendance requirements, mastery, blended learning to next month's agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Okay. Our bond.
Okay, discussion items, just a reminder, you have here, we have these that are going to be sent out, a reminder that the vote for the bond election is Tuesday, August 25th. And so just that's the day to vote. We're just going to encourage everybody to make sure they get out and cast their vote. We've had 3 different community meetings. We've even taped it on YouTube Live. I've allowed myself to be as accessible as possible. And so I don't think we need to go into more detail, but just an update to the board that this is when the bond is in, and we'll see how that turns out.
And this is going out tomorrow.
Yep.
Great.
And then if there's no questions, COVID funding.
Yeah.
So just a quick update as we went through all of our different COVID plans. We have received different COVID funding that allows us to purchase things like that's where we purchase the masks for the students and the sanitizer and the different things like that. We're currently looking at some options for technology going on with the blended learning. One of the grants that I am completing and putting in right now is for blended learning, and it allows us to be able to apply for quite a lot of money that we could use to beef up the technology, but it's based off of remote learning, or blended learning. I don't want to, and so a blended learning format would mean it goes hand in hand with the mastery, that if we have days where kids are gone, this would be something that even on a snow day, if we wanted to, we could have something where it's blended, whether you're in school or out of school, there's still opportunities. And so for us to apply for that, we'll also outline in the strategic plan what we would do upon getting that grant. So
Super. So on a snow day, if the teacher isn't here, can they do that in home?
they could. They could. And it could be something where, I don't think we make them mandatory, but it could be something, hey, let's send it out. There's a lot of different options that are available. And so that's where the blended learning, the mastery learning and blended learning will follow through. And I just wanted to share that there is funding also available to go that route. And it's also the funding available for mastery-based grants to help support schools as they go towards that. So that was just information that I wanted to share, that yes, with the cutbacks, I don't want to always say that we're not being given a little bit of extra money. We can't use that money for salaries. We can't use that money for facilities, but we can use it for COVID related planning, including distance and remote learning.
Okay, great. Okay, and just a couple calendar items. The bond on the 25th, homecoming week, September 14th through the 18th, and our next board meeting is the 17th.
Okay.
So we'll be open for a motion to adjourn.
Chair, I'll make the motion that we adjourn.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for coming, everyone.
You didn't ask if anybody opposed.
Oh, it's loud and clear.
I'm trying to get it out real fast.
Yeah, I gotta drive home in the dark.